they've got something worth saying if they've been banned from Facebook, because that's the only time that ever happens. So it's very important for all of us to get behind organizations like Unite the Tribes and to keep showing up at meetings like these every week, because that is the only thing that our politicians are going to listen to. You've got to show up here and make plenty of noise. Now, they've been banned from Facebook, but you can still get them on Instagram at Rise Up Galway and on Telegram at Rise Up Éireann. If Ireland is ever to fight back against the incipient tyranny that is spreading its ugly tentacles into every aspect of our lives, it's essential that ordinary citizens continue to show up at meetings such as this every week, because that's the only thing our politicians will listen to. So I strongly urge you to give your full support to Unite the Tribes. Chairperson of the Irish Freedom Party, a recently established political party, and organisations like ours are beginning to emerge. We're not unified as yet, but we will get there. We urgently need radical reform to our political system, or we're going to have more of the type of tyranny we've seen becoming commonplace in our country. If you have any doubt about what I say, just think back 18 months ago. Would anybody have believed that within 18 months we would have witnessed imprisonment of the entire population in their own homes? Would anybody believe that we would witness the horrible spectacle of members of An Garda Síochána going into churches to break up masses, organising roadblocks, arresting priests for saying mass? Would anybody believe that we would have allowed elderly people to die in nursing homes from incompetence and from mismanagement? And perhaps most cruelly, would we have believed that we would have allowed our old and elderly and frail people to die on their own on the basis of a spurious virus without any medical or scientific background? There is no science whatever behind the lockdowns that we have witnessed. What has caused it is a reaction of a government which is panicked and which is incapable of providing leadership. It is the reaction of a bureaucracy which is incapable of proportionate response, and the reaction of a media which is bought and paid for and which has become as hostile to the truth as any Soviet-era propaganda system. If we ever succeed in having a proper reckoning over what's happened to us over the last 15 months, we're going to have to assess how many people have died unnecessarily by deferring medical treatment. What is the psychological impact that this has had on our young and on our elderly? What is the impact of the corruption that this has affected on our legal and our administrative systems? And what is the impact it has had on the private sector economy and the small business people who have built up their businesses over years, to see them being destroyed and significant advantage given to the major corporate sector? All of the institutions of this country, which are supposed to protect us from government overreach and government tyranny, have shown themselves incapable of doing their job. I refer, of course, to the Oireachtas in the first instance, who have not scrutinised the legislation which has been implemented and have not held their own government to account. I refer to the legal profession and the legal system, which has kicked this matter to touch. And sadly, most of all, I refer to our churches, which could have given leadership on this matter, but which rolled over and became effectively an arm of a totalitarian state. Many legal cases have been brought on these matters before the courts, but the courts have fit to kick this matter to touch, to delay what is probably the most important case that has ever come before them, in the hope that it will go away. Well, the Irish people will not go away, and we will not submit to tyranny. We have seen with incredulity the overreach of government over the past year and a half. And I'm afraid that what we've witnessed is nothing but a dry run for what's going to happen into the future. To now talk about giving us back some of our freedoms, if we're lucky. Our freedoms belong to us. They're imprescriptible under our Constitution. They are not bestowed by government. They belong to the people. Having gotten away with driving a coach and four through the Constitution and through the legal system over the last year and a half, the most pernicious effort that the government is now arranging for us is the proposed hate speech legislation. Our party, the Irish Freedom Party, made a major submission on that 2 years ago, and I think the bill which is now being published is far more draconian and far more dangerous than anything we could have imagined. It will now become possible for any member of a protected group to take law against an individual because he has taken offence, not because he has incited hatred, but because he has taken offence. It appears to me that there is nothing in our legislation that will protect an ordinary citizen in the privacy of his own home, in the privacy of a social organisation situation. If he expresses an opinion which is taken to cause offence, he may be liable to prosecution. It is difficult indeed to understand how a free democratic state can organise such a proposal of legislation. The justification for this legislation is that there were not sufficient prosecutions under the previous incitement to hatred legislation. Well, that's a bit like saying if there's not sufficient prosecutions under driving safety legislation, we should start prosecuting people who drive safely. The reason there were not sufficient prosecutions is because the Irish people are not a hateful people. We do not project hatred against others. We do not project hatred against other races. And this is being introduced in order to promote a Marxist agenda of critical race theory and in order to undermine our democracy and our civil rights. And that is the only reason for it. The proposed hate speech legislation, which you will hear a lot about over the next months, is by far the worst attack by this fascistic government against the people of Ireland. The present legislation in regard to lockdown at least has the advantage that it is regarded as being temporary, but there will be no such respite in regard to the hate speech legislation. It will give An Garda Síochána the right to enter into your house, to enter into your private social gatherings, to enter into the privacy of your opinions and to prosecute you and to interrogate you on matters that you believe and matters that you have said. There can be no greater attack against the democracy. There can be no greater attack against the civilization, because mark my words, when you lose the freedom of expression, you cannot defend any other right which we are entitled to as free people. This is the hill upon which we must fight. We must fight this legislation or we will have no country left. It is inconceivable that only a few years after celebrating Pearson Connolly on the anniversary of 2016, and we next year will celebrate the independence of this country, it is inconceivable that within a democratically elected state we are now rushing to give away the freedoms that those people died for. And remember, every generation must fight to retain its freedom and its liberty. The generation of 100 years ago faced bullets, they faced coercion, they faced arrest. We only face prosecution, but it will become worse. While we still have an opportunity, we must fight against the coercion that we're facing. And don't be under any doubt that what we're facing is of a completely new order to anything we've faced before. This is fascism, pure and simple, and we must fight against it. Therefore, I would ask all of you to become activists at some level, to support organisations like Fight the Tribes, to support organisations like the Irish Freedom Party. We're not perfect, but we will give you a home, we will listen to you if you want to fight against the fascism that is coming towards us. If we do not stand for liberty now, what kind of a country are we going to bequeath to our youth? I do not want it said to me in years to come, what did you do when you had an opportunity to fight and you let them destroy our laws, destroy our legal system, or destroy our constitution? I don't want that question to be asked of me. And make no mistake, what we are facing, sacrificing here, is a civilization based on the rule of law where we all have equal protections. That's what's on the line, and make no doubt about it. If we stand together in unity, those who seek to destroy our nation will crumble before the power of a risen people, as they have done in the past in our history. Therefore, I implore you to stand up for Ireland, to stand up for liberty, and to stand up for freedom. Thank you very much.